The second point for critical analysis is the number of educational institutions that opened up within the country. According to the 1972 policy, focus was placed on opening more schools and colleges for children of middle-class families, opposed to providing education only to the elite class. Because prior to the 1972 policy, education was available if you could afford it. If you were able to pay the fees, and they were not cheap, they were quite steep even for those times. If you were able to pay the fees, you got an education and you went to school. Otherwise, you did not. With a focus on compulsory education for all children, the government pledged to open schools and colleges across the country, which allowed more children of school-going age to get to schools and colleges. With this, the dream of having compulsory education across the nation for all school-going children was about to happen. With the increase in the number of children going to schools, the government had foresight and thought, and also said, what about after they finish grade 12? And what if students after grade 12 wanted to attend further education? They increased even the number of universities across the country. So from school to college to university, all educational institutions increased in number, with the result that there were more children going to schools, colleges, and universities. The dream of having compulsory education for all children was materialized. However, free education was allowed only in schools up to matric. Once you went to college and then on to university, you were expected to pay a certain amount of fee. Number 3, from October 1972, all privately managed institutions were nationalized. Now, this has two focuses. One is that it was a good decision, and the second is that it was a not so good decision. It depends on how you look at it. When all institutions were nationalized, the government did not have to worry about the quality of education in private schools versus government schools. When schools were all nationalized, they were all government schools, and the education would be the same. Moreover, in the privately managed institutions, teachers were not paid very well and probably were not treated very well. So for the teachers, it was happy. The teachers were happy because it brought them to par with what the government was paying teachers in the government institutions, which was higher than what the private institutions were paying their teachers at that time. The second piece was, would the quality of education survive? Yes, that might be questionable. The quality of education may not have been the same in the nationalized institutions as compared to the private institutions. So you have to look at the pros and cons, the good and the bad. In the long run, was it really a good decision? That only individuals can decide for themselves. Number 4, a National Book Foundation was set up, and it would provide students with cheap and quality textbooks. Two things the National Book Foundation had to do: had to make sure that students at all levels were provided with appropriate textbooks of good quality, and they were not supposed to be pricey either. So it was quality material provided at a reasonable rate so that students and their parents could afford it, could buy the various textbooks and use it for their supplies and their learning. This was a step in the right direction because the National Book Foundation was supposed to monitor the working of the various publishing houses that were responsible for producing textbooks and produce quality textbooks for our students.